Hi boys and girls, it's me, Butch. My name is Terry David Silvercloud. I'm not native, just sounds that way. I'm 79 years old. Today is the 9th of July, Tuesday, on a hot for Vancouver sunny evening at English Bay in Vancouver. So my goal this evening is to be Socrates at the beach. So who was Socrates? He was one of the first big Greek minds to which we paid attention when we started getting cultured in the West, I guess. And his fellow citizens hated him so much, they ordered him to kill himself, or they would do it for him. So he killed himself. So why would old Socrates, who we admire today, want to kill himself? Well, they were going to kill him anyway, and being the decent, polite society they were, they didn't feel that, they should have to do all that messy stuff and he should do it himself, and he did. What Socrates did wrong was to go against the gods. He was preaching that the gods were a bunch of hooey, and then the universe was ruled by natural kinds of laws, and we'd probably find them in shapes and numbers and things like that. And that didn't go over so well with the priests who made their living keeping things tidy and keeping the faithful faithful. He did this in the marketplace, the agora, where to get in there you had to be at least 18. And he was just sort of a pest to a lot of people, always asking questions, never stopped asking people. He just kept asking their opinions about absolutely everything, and he was just plain annoying. So a lot of people think maybe it was because he was having sexual relationships with boys, but that was just all kind of normal in those days. And it may have come about because apparently, and they found evidence now to prove it, there was a tavern just outside the agora, and the young men, women didn't really count in those days, the young men would hang out there under 18 because they couldn't go into the marketplace because they weren't old enough, and sex between boys and men was just all rather normal. But Socrates used to hang out there, and he used to spread his ideas there as well. So that would annoy the priest because he was imbuing the future young male populace to the concept that the gods are all a bunch of hooey. So Butch is of the same opinion. Butch thinks that religions are evil and there are no gods. Somebody a while ago taught me to say I'm godless. So Butch is godless. But people want to have a reason why the universe is here, and they resort to Big Bang, and because it sounds, it kind of fits in with a God kind of thing where God created the universe. So let's get that God out of the way right away. The moment you say God created the universe, then you've just created a host of brand new problems and very difficult ones to answer, impossible things to answer, like, well, where did God come from? Who made God? Like, what was that reality like? Was God married? Did God have children? It just doesn't answer the question at all. But in the world of science, in the world of physics, in order to debate anything, we have to not sweep it under the carpet. So we are going to bring God into here and give God a definition so we can talk about God. So here's the Butch definition of God. The Butch definition of God is a metaphor for the sum of all reality, all at once, all of the time, everywhere, has been infinitely, forever, and will be. That it's simply a metaphor for the total sum of reality. You could call it Mother Nature, and that would work just as well. It's a concept, the concept of everythingness, all at once, all the time. There is no heaven or hell. It's all right here. Heaven is here. Hell is here. You're God. I'm God. And it's happening all at once, all of the time, everywhere. And it's extraordinarily likely that there's zillions of other planets with life on it as well. But even here on Earth, there's, 7 billion people or something like that. Somebody's being born every second. Somebody's dying every second. I think there's 2 people being born every second and 1 person dying. So we're growing at about a rate of 1 person a second every year. 1 other new person on the planet. So we should starve ourselves out soon. Invest in metals, kids. All you young ones out there, you really young ones, invest in metals. They're going to be worth a fortune when you're an adult. They're going to be like through the roof. Nobody will be able to afford metals. Butch says so. That's my advice to you really young ones out there. Invest in metal futures. Where was I? So Big Bang came about from an observation somewhere in the 20s or somewhere that the space between stars and planets seemed to be getting bigger, expanding like things do when they get warm. But there's no center or anything. That notwithstanding, somebody who really, some geek in math, looked at the apparent rate of expansion and calculated backwards and decided that at a particular time the entire universe was the size of a melon or something, which is just plain silly. But notwithstanding all that silliness, having a Big Bang is useful when you're trying to talk about just how all this came to be anyway. Like from a theoretical point of view, it's called reverse engineering, going back to when you first got the nuts and bolts together before you actually built the house or assembled the car or whatever it was you were building. So Big Bang from a theoretical point of view is a very useful kind of thing to have, but it's silly. So no gods for you, but let's assume, for the sake of argument, there was a Big Bang. Oh, one other thing, like not all theories are correct. You know, a lot of people say that Einstein's theory of relativity, one of the things that proves it is that light bends towards the sun, and that would happen in spite of anything Einstein said, simply because energy bends towards denser matter. And going out from the sun outwards, because it's attracting and spewing, like it's spitting stuff out and sucking stuff in, the density of space around the sun is considerably denser electronically than further out. And it's going to be denser near the equatorial plane. Which brings me to something I wanted to talk about. Let's see, something I wanted to talk about. We're traveling through space sort of South Pole forward. Oh, that's what it was. And as we travel about 7 billion kilometers a year through space, which is like a long helical wave, but it's a wiggly long helical wave. And some of those little wiggles within the big helical are caused by the fact that the equatorial plane is changing a bit versus the galactic plane. And also at certain times we pass through the galactic plane, go down below it and above. So there may be periods, this is just a suggestion, when things seem to be expanding or contracting. It may be influenced by what type of wavelengths are accessible to us because of the level of galactic energy around us. We can't detect longer waves than the longest wave we're in, if that makes sense. We can only detect the shorter waves. I have a doggy running in front of me here. Where am I? Anyhow, Big Bang has all kinds of flaws, and I wouldn't take it too seriously except from a theoretical point of view. So that's where we go to look for this God you all seem to want, or some of you do. Butch couldn't care less. So let's try to imagine a beginning. And if something exists, it's either one thing which has no parts, which is just silly, or it's got so many parts that we can't even see the smallest parts. And that's likely the way it is. And we call that smallest part we can't see, or the ones close to it, a quantum. And that's just for the sake of measuring in a type of science we call quantum mechanics, quantum physics, where in order to define things, we just define it as a dot, and then we give it wave characteristics, so we can turn it into a ball and give it different size and make it last different lengths of time. And that way we can calculate how much energy is in that ball at what time and for how long. We're really fracturing the world up into energy with quantum physics. Where am I? Totally forgot what I was talking about. I did. I forgot what I was talking about. I can be such an idiot sometime. So, Big Bang, quantum. So we divide the universe up into the very smallest units, and it would be, from our point of view, while it would be defined as a solid because the individual bits would have no space between them, that solid would not actually be able to condense to a solid and would be defined as a gas. And the reason it would have, or a liquid or a gas, let's call it a liquid because that fits more with my rules, because it doesn't really have parts. So it has only one surface, and the only way you can have one surface is to be a sphere. And a sphere has the ability to be both infinite and one at the same time, which is very handy because it can be both a rational number and an irrational number at the same time. That's very handy to do in mathematics and the world of physics, for reasons I do understand and don't understand. Let me step aside here. I'm going to forget what I was talking about. Well, I'll get back to it. The number 0 is a really modern concept. We got it from India. The Templars, the Knights Templars knew about it, and they used it in their banknotes. What we're talking about here, the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, the ones with which you're familiar, those are from East India, and they did not exist in English-speaking world before 1542, when Robert Record wrote the book. Robert Record literally wrote the book on mathematics, literally, and he called 0 Ciph, C-I-P-H, the cipher number. And apparently there's all kinds of reasons why there was not a 0 in many number systems, many of them for superstitious reasons, no less. But anyhow, we gained the number 0, and it's a number with no value. It's a cipher between positive and negative numbers, and it has all kinds of wonderful things it can do that the other numbers can't do, and we got 0. It's very handy in quantum physics because it allows you to be here, not here, and then there, and then not. Everything in quantum physics is a wave, which means it's here, there, it's here, then not here. It's like Schrodinger's cat. Is it dead or alive? Depends whether it's here or there. Inside joke or something. Not a very good one. All right, where were I? So getting back to having an original universe, we divide the whole universe into cubes, except there's no space in between, and we can't disperse energy cubically, but we can disperse it spherically. So we have to imagine the cubes are actually soft spheres in the shape of a cube. So what we got is spheres which, when we shape them into a cube, would have exactly the same volume. That's what we would have, if you can imagine that. But if you have just the cubes, like everywhere, and the center of the energy is at the center of the cube, it cannot disperse the energy equally to the edge of the cube at the same time. So the only logic is that the spheres encase the cubes energy-wise, and the spheres touch the corners of the cube. Interestingly, if you look at the ancient flower of life drawings, especially done on the surfaces of a sphere, you'll start seeing the hexagonal patterns and the circles intersecting each other's centers. That, in reality, is a more realistic way for energy to distribute itself, overlapping, as it were, like you see in the flower of life, where you still maintain equidistance, but you maintain a more equal disbursement of energy. But if the universe were cubic, with these spherical energy fields inside, they eventually want to turn one way or another because they get off balance to develop a pole. It may be in relation to the ones beside them, more likely the ones above and below, because if one of them starts spinning, they'll be head to toe with the one above and below, and they'd be more likely to start spinning with the one above or below. But if one was beside them and started spinning this way, it would be inclined to counterspin. All of that kind of things would cause the inner sphere to want to tilt towards one of its 8 corners anyway, depending on where it was, of the cubic shape. And the cube would be inclined to want to change shapes. So if the basic gaseous unit, which was a sphere shaped like a cube, was under too much pressure, it would want to start changing its shape from a cube to a rhomboid. And another reason it would want to do that is a thing called hairy ball theory. And that's if you have a ball that's hairy and you turn it, all the hairs will be in one direction, but there'll be whatever the spike of hair at the top of the bottom, I keep forgetting what it's called. There'll be a 0 point at the top and the bottom. All of this is starting to cause one part of the energies within the original cubic space to be moving faster than the other, which may cause some of it to fall out of the speed of light. They were all moving at the speed of light, which was basically nowhere. It was all measured by their own individual size. If they moved one of themselves, which is one nothingness, that was the speed of light, no matter how fast it took to do it. In this case, it would be extraordinarily fast, but the point is that is the speed of light, how fast one of the individual things can move, because light requires them to bump into each other, or rather than bump into each other, it's more likely they're turning in long lines of one spinning one way, the next one the other one, and that's how the energy in a mechanically moving way would be moving. Where was I with all this? The point of it is that it would be extremely difficult to maintain a stable universe when the units were so small and the distance was so big. Long waves might begin to appear. The long waves are the ones that are going to crack the universe. Long waves would be like a nanometer. Right? That's not very long. But we have waves here in our solar system that are light years long. We're riding one of the waves of the sun, and it lasts for a year. That's how long it takes us to go around the sun. So that wave is 7 billion kilometers long. You know, we don't really have any detection other than by observation to detect waves so long. Where am I going with all of this? Where I'm going is that it's possible, and it's difficult, but with all these little things like hairy ball theory and the fact that you can't have absolute nothingness because even no matter how small you make the individual somethingnesses, they're pushing out and they're exerting energy in an irrational way in every direction possible, an infinite number of directions, where the solid stuff doesn't like that. It likes straight lines. So you get things that start falling below the speed of light and things which are above the speed of light. Those which are below the speed of light we call fermions, and those that operate above the speed of light we call bosons. That's the energy, and it's always measured in waves. We have ways in which we could measure the solid stuff in waves too, but centimeters and stuff and nanometers sometimes are more useful. I'm going to show you a couple things here because I've been rambling on and on. Hang on. I was talking about how the universe, if the universe was in cubes, that you could have a sphere with the same volume or similar. And I want to get back to the cubes for a second. If you tilt a cube, an equal cube all on its sides, you get what's called a rhomboid, and a rhomboid can be broken apart into two regular prisms. And that shape can be turned into a gyrobifastigium, which is what this is, and this is another type of prism. These are all very, very fundamental shapes, and every time they're together, they're exactly the same volume as the cube. That's extraordinarily important because it means that the universe, even if you make it cube shape is it's just not stable enough. We all know that because buildings wobble and fall down. This is a cube, and when it's exactly at the right tilt, it's a rhombic cube, and those particular things, the gyrobifastigium, the regular prism, the cube, all of them can tile the universe. That means if they were the individual shapes, you can use them and there'll be no space left between anything. So if you can start by breaking a cube into a couple of regular prisms and that breaks down, suddenly your cubes, your original spheres, they're just having trouble. It would be almost impossible to make a stable universe, even if it was all exactly the same gas, which people like to think is hydrogen, but hydrogen's made of a proton and electron, and even the electron is made of something smaller. Butch says the electron is this. Oops. Well, there's different ones. By modifying this shape, you get the electron that we know would be a gyrobifastigium because that's just so extraordinarily stable. But you could have another shape which is similar, but kind of a neutral shape, but exactly the same mass as an electron, except it's neutral because it's a prism. If light comes into this, it'll be reflected at exactly right angles out of it. So it's an electron, but it's a neutral electron. Are you getting it? And the parts are these individual little bits which start spinning originally, the little dots which either start vibrating sideways and then somehow get stuck to another one that's vibrating exactly the same as they are, and then they can rotate one way or the other and they join up with other strings that are going the other way, and the next thing you know, you have strings that are joining together with energy fields between them and all kinds of things going on. It's possible to have your God starting with one somethingness filling the universe everywhere, and it's just raw energy. And the total amount of raw energy is just determined by a fixed value we can never know because we don't have anything against which to measure it except at our small level, at the electron level, where we do all kinds of measurings. So this has been a really long video. Did I cover it? I don't know. Maybe. I don't want it to go on too long because I keep forgetting what I'm talking about. This is my second attempt, and then the first one I really screwed up. I'll probably post both of them. Who knows? So that's it from Butchie Poo down in English Bay. And I'm going to do more of these just to try and inspire you to think about reality. Okay? Now I got to reach down behind you here. Let me see. Where are you here? I think I found you. I'm putting my hand behind your back and I'm going to say, bye.